السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All right. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody had a good day. I hope everybody spent some good time going over everything we learned yesterday. Spent some time doing some work from the workbook. Um, eh, inshallah, give me a moment and we will get started. Okay. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Maha, I am doing very well. Allahumma lak alhamd. How are you doing? All right, same drill as the last few days. If you have any questions on past content, then feel free to enter them into the chat. Again, um, I guess I don't have the ability to create live streams on the Bayna website yet, so no no stream there until Ustad gets here. It's just going to be on YouTube and Facebook. Okay. Can I explain the? Okay, I knew this one was coming. Ism maf'ul. Um, let me. All right. So how to go about this? So we have two categories. Okay. These two categories are completely separate topics. Okay. We have nahu and we have sarf. These are two separate topics. They both play an important role when it comes to learning Arabic, obviously, but they are completely separate sciences, okay? And each science has its own set of vocabulary, and each science, that vocabulary applies in a different way, okay? Nahu is looking at, Nahu vocabulary is geared towards the role of a word in a sentence. That's what Nahu vocabulary tells you. The role of a word in a sentence. Sarf vocabulary tells you the form of a word. Okay? Like for example, in actually no, never mind. I'm not gonna use English. That's gonna confuse everybody. Okay, Nahu is the role of a word in a sentence, while Sarf is the form of a word. So we'll use the hardest one, and hopefully, if you guys can, if you guys can understand the hardest one, then everything else will make sense. There's fa'il in Nahu, and there's ism fa'il in Sarf. Okay? Fa'il in Nahu, ism fa'il in Sarf. Again, fa'il is the role of a word in a sentence. Ism fa'il is the form of a word. These are completely separate things. Okay? So a word can be in ism fa'il, but that's just the form. Like a word can be past tense. It can be a past tense fi'l. That's its form. It can be a present tense fi'l. That's its form. It can be a masdar. That's its form. It can be an ism fa'il. That's its form. It can be a commanding verb. That's its form. It can be a forbidding verb. That's its form, and so on. Right? These are all different forms of the verb. So ism fa'il is just another form. Ism maf'ul is just another form of the word, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how the word is being used in the sentence. Okay, it has nothing to do with what the word is doing in the sentence. Make sure you understand that. What did I do? Okay, has no bearing on what the word is doing in the sentence. Okay. All right. Is this much Does this much make sense so far? I'm gonna wait until I see some yeses or nos in the chat. So if this much is clear, then I'll start to move forward. Oh, sorry. Let me remove the banner so nobody gets confused. There we go. I don't like yes with dots after it, Zora. That makes me think you're not really confident in your yes. So if you're gonna say yes with dots, then just say no. I'm gonna give examples in a second. I just want to make sure that this part it makes some sense. I am Ustad Jawad Nurulina. Huda, no, you can't say that because we've done a lot of solve and we haven't talked about meaning. We barely talked about meanings. Can I please explain once more? Okay, I'm going to explain this part once more and then I'll move on to examples. So, again, these are two separate sciences. Two sciences in Arabic. These are two of the sciences in Arabic. There's Nahu, there's Sarf. And when it comes to the vocabulary regarding Nahu and Sarf, the vocabulary of Nahu focuses on what a word is doing in a sentence. The vocabulary in Sarf focuses on the word itself. What is the word? Not what is it doing in a sentence, how does it relate to other words, just what is the word. Okay? Sarf, you can look at a word by itself without a sentence and you can apply sarf to it, right? You can look at a word in a vacuum and you can apply sarf to it. Nahu requires context. That's why when we were learning a lot of stuff about the isms at the beginning, we said, when we have context, it'll make sense. You need to have context to understand this properly. We said that a lot. We said that for almost half of the course, right? We kept saying, wait till there's context. You'll know with context. You'll know with context. Because nahu needs context. It needs other words to show what's happening to the word. Okay? So again, nahu, vocabulary, role of the word in the sentence. Sarf is the form of the word itself. So fa'il is a role. Okay? Fa'il is a role. While ism fa'il is a form, like present tense, past tense, masdar, ism fa'il, ism maf'ul, fi'il amr, fi'il nahi, these are all forms. They have no bearing on what's happening in the sentence. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a example. So an example of an ism fa'il is Muslim, right? Aslama yuslimu islaman fahuwa muslimun. I can tell you Muslim is an ism fa'il just by looking at the word Muslim. I don't even need a sentence yet. It's just Muslim right now. It's not in a sentence, but I can still tell you it's an ism fa'il. If you can do that, then if you can do that with one of the vocabulary words of sarf, then that's how you know um, that this is a sarf term and not a nahu term, right? I can look just from the form of the word and I can tell you it's ism fa'il. That means it doesn't have any role in a sentence yet. That's just what it is. But if I put Muslim in a sentence, now this is a fa'il example. Muslim went to the store. Now the role of the Muslim in the sentence is it's doing the going, right? The verb is to go, and the Muslim is doing the going, and so the Muslim is the doer. And fa'il is how you say doer in Arabic. Fa'il is how you say doer in Arabic. So the role of Muslim now in this sentence is doer. It's fa'il. But that doesn't mean every time you see an ism fa'il, it will be the doer because I can say, I hit the Muslim. Now the verb is hit. So the fa'il of the sentence is I because I is performing the action of hitting. Okay? The action is hit. I'm hitting. I am the fa'il. The role of I in the sentence is fa'il. But the form of I is not ism fa'il. Okay? Again, fa'il tells you role in a sentence. Ism fa'il tells you the form of the word. I is not an ism fa'il. I is a pronoun. That's its form. I is a pronoun. But its role in the sentence is fa'il. And in this case, the role of Muslim, even though Muslim is an ism fa'il, its form is ism fa'il, the role of Muslim in the sentence, it's not fa'il, it's detail now. And we haven't gone over the term for detail yet. But I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna write out both examples. Um, Let me just add some notes here. Okay, we can tell this is in ism fa'il even when it's not in a sentence. Because ism fa'il is its form and a sentence isn't required. What was the first example I gave? The Muslim went to the store. And then the second one was in this one, action is went, and the Muslim is is doing is the doer of the action. The way we say doer in Arabic is fa'il. That's its role in the sentence. In the second case, let me add one more. It also form. Yeah, that's right. Its form also just happens to be ism fa'il. But you don't have to have an ism fa'il as the fa'il. The fa'il can be a lot of different things, like we saw in the second sentence. In the second sentence, the fa'il was a pronoun. Um, the action is it, and I is the doer of the action. So the fa'il in this sentence, I'm gonna keep that part in Arabic so it's easy to point out. And then Okay, so the fa'il in this sentence is the pronoun I. The form of I is not ism fa'il. Form is pronoun. The ism fa'il in this sentence is the detail. But that doesn't make it any less of an ism fa'il just because it's not the fa'il in the sentence. They are two completely separate terms. Let me flip my page. That didn't do anything. Okay, I want to fit everything, but it might be too small. Okay, hopefully the second part is enough. Um, is this clear? If I make the font size bigger, then everything's not going to fit on the page. You should be able to see my screen. I just did explain it. When you find the verb, if you're looking at a sentence, when you find the verb, whoever the doer of that verb is, that's the fa'il in the sentence. That has no bearing. That doesn't tell you anything about its form, though. Make sure you guys are all full screen, by the way. I know some people are saying it's too small, but I really can't do anything about that. Otherwise, it won't all fit on the page. No, Princess Castle, you're misunderstanding. Ustad didn't say that ism fa'il, its function in the sentence is always the doer. He's saying that the word itself represents somebody who does something. Okay, a Muslim is somebody who submits. Okay, that's what that means. The action of submitting is is already included in the word Muslim. A Muslim is somebody who submits. That's what he means by um, it's the doer of an action. Not that it's whenever you see it in a sentence, it will always be doing the action. No, because again, sarf terms don't have anything to do with nahu terms. Sarf terms don't tell you what the word is doing in the sentence. Sarf terms tell you about the word itself. So the word Muslim is it, it is a, I guess you could say it's a doer, but that's confusing. The word Muslim performs the action of aslama. That's what ism fa'il is. Whatever the ism fa'il is, that word will be performing the action of that same root. So if I took the word istaghfara, which means to seek forgiveness, the ism fa'il of istaghfara is mustaghfirun. So a mustaghfir is somebody who does the action of istaghfara. Alima means to know. The ism fa'il of alima is alim. So an alim is somebody who does the action of knowing. Is that a little bit more clear? The ism fa'il is whoever does the action of that verb, but that's just in meaning. Okay. When I say teacher, Every time I use the word teacher, that doesn't mean that whoever I'm talking about is actively teaching. So when if I use the word Muslim, that doesn't mean that actually maybe I should use a different one. If I use muallim, same thing, teacher, muallim, that doesn't mean that every time I say muallim, the muallim is teaching, right? The muallim can be doing a lot of things. The muallim can sometimes be teaching. The muallim can also go to the store. The muallim can also be hit. The muallim can also sleep, right? So the muallim, while the meaning of muallim tells us that okay, something that like he teaches, and that's what he's being identified by is the fact that he teaches. That doesn't mean he's always going to be teaching whenever you see him. Okay, I hope that's clear now. I don't know anything about the Sarf transcripts and when they'll be available. Unfortunately, yesterday's quiz, fragment one, isn't it a sentence? Let's take a look. Okay, before I do that though, is ism fa'il and fa'il clear? Really off topic, but it would be kind if you can explain why Abd in Abdullah is nasab, Abdullah is an idafa, why is Abd nasab? Shouldn't it be rafa? Normally, by default, it will be rafa. It will be Abdullah. But when people are talking to like let's say I have a friend named Abdullah and I want to get his attention. So I call his name. Remember when we talked about calling, right? When you're calling in idafa, then the mudaf becomes nasab. Don't let this confuse anybody, by the way. I'm not going to answer any more questions on this after I say it. When you're calling in idafa, it becomes nasab. So whereas by default it would be Abdullah, if I'm calling my friend Abdullah, I say Ya Abdullah. I make it nasab. That's why in hadith, right? In hadith literature, you say Ya Rasulallah. When people call the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you see it made mansub. Ya Rasulallah. And you don't even need the ya there actually, because you can call without actually saying ya. Like I can just say Abdullah. I'm still calling him. It's just I took the ya away. So I can also say Rasulullah. I'm calling him. I just took the ya away. So anytime you're calling in idafa, it becomes mansub. Maybe that's what that was. Um, if not, if that's not what you're talking about, then I would need to see the exact context. Um, but yeah, okay, good. I'm glad it's clear for everyone. Okay, let's look at fragment one in yesterday's sentence. Um, Fragment one, wa inna alaykum. This is a sentence, but look at the instructions. The instructions say identify the fragments. You can have a sentence. A sentence is going to be made of fragments, right? Every time I talk, even though I'm talking in sentences, I'm using fragments. So, sure, wa inna alaykum lahafidhin is a sentence, but it's made up of fragments. It's made up of two fragments. Alaykum is one of them, harf jar, and it's ism. And then there's also a harf nasab. Wa inna, and then lahafidhin is the ism of inna. So this is two fragments. That's how, just because it's a sentence doesn't mean there aren't any fragments available. Why is kal farashi jar? Or why is it jar majrur? But kadhibina is not jar majrur. In kal farashi, this kaf is harf of jar. But in kadhibina, the kaf is a part of a word, is a part of the word. The word is kadhib, kadhib. Kadhib is somebody who lies, is a liar. So كاذب, كاذبا, كاذب, كاذبان, كاذبين, كاذبين, كاذبون, كاذبين, كاذبين. That's a part of the word. That's not a harf jar. Ka. That's why كالفراش is jar, but كاذبين wasn't necessarily jar. Fragment 3, can I explain why it's not idafa? Sure. The first word, okay, if I take off this kaf, this is ineditable. Let me rewrite it. I'm not going to erase this. I'm going to keep this up for a little while so I can come back to it. Wait, why did this go back to? That's weird. It should be in landscape. Oh, that was landscape. That's weird. Okay. I don't know, it just seems so small. Okay. The fragment is كالفراش المبثوث. If I take this kaf off of the first word, we already said this is a harf jar, right? So it's removable. If I remove it, the word is al-farashi al-mabthuthi. A mudaf can never have alif lam. So just by looking at the word, I can tell you this is not a mudaf. The alif lam immediately invalidates it from being mudaf. Number 4 is a sentence, yes. هذا بلد آمنا. This is a like safe country, safe land. You can't put is ilham. You can't put is after inna because the is goes after inna and its ism. So I put the is after the ism of inna, which is al abrara. You can never put in after just the ism because in is a harf and in doesn't make any sense by itself. So if I put an is after a harf, it wouldn't make any sense. In means certainly. I can't say certainly is. Certainly is the righteous people in a good place. It doesn't make sense. However, it doesn't make sense. If I already found the invisible is, then I don't need to keep looking. That's correct. Once I found the invisible is, that's it. Even if there are breaks, then I don't need to find another invisible is. There won't be another invisible is. Yeah, we talked about African craft when we mentioned when we were talking about fragments. We said that for harf nasab and its ism, and also for mawsuf sifa, for these two, the the different the part the two parts of these fragments can have a long distance relationship. So I can have other things come in between inna and its ism. I can have things come in between the mawsuf and the sifa. Well, yeah. اسم فاعل الفاعل. I Zisha, I just went. I spent like the first 30 minutes going through that. I don't know if you were there for that. If you just joined, then go back on the video and look at that again. I went to it in pretty in a lot of detail. On the first page of the Sarf workbook, would i'wanun and israfun fit the masdar pattern? Yes, they would, because when we talked about masdar, is the masdar an ism or is masdar a fi'l? Masdar is an ism. So we learned about isms at the beginning of Nahu, and we learned the Muslim chart. We learned that isms can be rafa' and they can be nasab and they can be jar and they can be also proper and common. So I can take al on and off of the masdar and I can make the masdar rafa' nasab and jar. So I can say islamun, islaman, islamin. I can also say al-islamu, al-islama, and al-islami. Ammara, kanu is not a harf of jar because number one, it's a fi'l. And also the kaf is part of the word. The word is kana, and then uh, kana is a past tense, and then this is the home version, right? Nasara, nasara, nasaru, kana, kana, kanu. What's the passive for tukhbirina? It would be tukhbarina. Shaista, let me see what your question was. One moment. Section 3, the fourth one can be proper, followed by comment. No, asa'a is proper and maw'id is also proper. So that's incorrect. Rosanna, I'm not sure. If you're following all of the days, then you shouldn't be missing anything. Okay, we'll do one invisible is example. We'll do the first one. Right. Before anybody asks, let me make this a little more clear. Before anybody asks, Islam is not harf jar. This lam is not harf jar. So don't think it is. You cannot have a harf jar attached to another harf jar. This lam is not harf jar. Okay, I said it 3 times. That should be enough. How do we find the invisible is? Inna al-abrara. Inna is harf nasab. Al-abrara is mansoob. So al-abrara will be the ism inna. It will be the ism of inna. That's one relationship. So this is together. Oh, Inna al-abrara is together. Now, fi is a harf jar and na'im is majroor. So this together is jar majroor. So this is together. But when we look at these two parts, there's nothing, there's no reason for us to say these are together. So one reason why you can put the is here is because there's a break in the chain. These two things aren't together. They're not related. But even easier than that, one of our hints was that if you see a harf of nasab and it's ism, then you can just put an is after that. And that's another thing you could say that we've done. In al abrara, we put an is after it because we see it's harf of nasab and its ism, and that's one of the hints. M-E, M-E-J, that's correct. Number 3 and 4 in this as well. Okay, for number 3, we see alimun and halimun. They look the same, right? They look like they have the same status, number, gender, and type. And the word Allah at the beginning doesn't look like it's connected to them in any way. Okay? The word Allah is proper. Alimun and halimun are common. So we can use a break in the chain, or we can use um, proper followed by common. Both of those work. So Wallahu is alimun halimun. The break in the chain comes after the word Allah. As-sa'atu maw'iduhum. Maw'iduhum is an idafa. As-sa'atu is just by itself. As-sa'atu is not connected to anything, right? So we use breaking the chain. Maw'iduhum doesn't have any relationship. It's not connected to as-sa'a. So the word the is would come after as-sa'a. As-sa'atu is maw'iduhum. Whoa. Shaista, you don't have to. It's just for your own practice. How about la and fi? How about it? What's the problem? I already said la is not a harf of jar, so you don't really have to worry about that. And you know what fi is, and you know what na'im is as well. You know that fi na'im is a fragment. Warda, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Don't bother yourself with something that you haven't even seen yet. Active and passive are just for past. No, active and passive are also for present. How do you analyze a sa'a? Um, really, just got to look at it. You see, it has two at the end, so that tells us two things. That tells us it's feminine, and that also tells us that it's rafa'. Um, this kind of looks like muslimatu, so there's a really good chance that it's going to be singular, and it's the al at the beginning tells us it's proper. So if I had to take a guess, I would say it's rafa', one, feminine, proper. موعدهم is an idafa. Yes, Zain, that's correct. LB, can I explain how the word Musliman changed to Muslimu? If you give me an example of where it's changing, then I can tell you. Yasra, no. As-sa'atu maw'iduhum is not proper followed by common. Maw'id is proper because maw'iduhum is an idafa and the mudaf gets its properness from the mudaf ilayh. Hum is a pronoun. Hum is proper. Pronouns are always proper. So hum makes maw'id proper. So you can't say it's proper followed by common. Workbook, page 45, number 5. Okay. لِيَكُونَ لِلْعَالَمِينَ نَذِيرًا. The original word here is, okay, we talked about, this is under lightest, right? Or it's light. Okay, this is under light. So you already know that all of the examples here are going to be of light. You don't have to worry about this maybe being lightest. You know these are all light. So don't make this harder on yourself. You already know these are all going to be examples of light. So when you see this li, don't think, what if this is the li of lightest? No, this is the li of light because we're talking about light. It tells you it's light right here. So you know the effect of li in this case is making it light, not lightest. And we know that if we have a normal present tense fi'l, like yansuru, its lightest version is yansura. So when you see this na at the end, and you see there's a a light harf at the beginning, then you can tell that this is a light fi'l. To make it normal, all I would do is the reverse of that. Instead of going from yansuru to yansura, I'm going from yansura to yansuru. So to make this normal, it would just be yakunu. Not instead of liyakuna, it just becomes yakunu. That's the normal. And I guess while we're here, because today's quiz is on light and lightest, we can go over light and lightest. So a present tense fi'l, present tense only. Keep that in mind. Present tense only. A present tense fi'l can be normal, it can also be light, and it can also be lightest. Okay? Just like for isms, we had rafa', nasab, and jar, and we said that the normal is rafa', then we have reasons for making it nasab, and we have reasons for making it jar. We have the harf nasab to make it nasab, and we have the harf jar to make it jar. In present tense fi'ls, we have a similar concept. We have normal, then we have the harf light to make it light, and we have the harf lightest to make it lightest. These are the harf of light. An, lan, likay, hatta, and idhan. Or sorry, an, lan, likay, idhan, and hatta. These are the harf of lightest. If you see one of these followed by a present tense fi'l, then that present tense fi'l has to be light. Just like when we said, for example, harf of nasab. When we see a harf of nasab followed by an ism, that ism has to be nasab. If we see harf of light followed by a present tense fi'l, that present tense fi'l has to be light. Okay? And when we already talked about the effects of what light looks like. So for the ones that end in u, which is, for example, yansuru, tansuru, ansuru, and nansuru, for these four, the u becomes an a. So it will become yansura, tansura, ansura, and nansura. We can do another example. Yuslimu, tuslimu, uslimu, and nuslimu becomes yuslima, tuslima, uslima, nuslima. So that u becomes an a. For the rest of them, the noon is removed. So yansurani becomes yansura. Yansuruna becomes yansuru. Tansurina becomes tansuri. The noon is removed. The only exception is the feminine plural versions. Yansurna and tansurna, they stay the same always. They never change. Not even in light, not even in lightest. Speaking of lightest, okay, just like we had the harf of light, we have the harf of lightest um, in lam, lamma, wal, fal, and li. Ustad mentioned that there's wal, fal here, but it's just not included. So in lam, lamma, wal, fal, and li. And if you see any of these huruf, if you see any of these harfs followed by a present tense fi'l, then that present tense fi'l will be made lightest. Now we talked about the effect of what lightest looks like. Now let's talk about what light looks like. So just like for light, We went from u to a. For lightest, instead of going u to a, we're going from u to sukoon. So yansuru becomes yansur. Tansuru becomes tansur. Ansuru becomes ansur. And nansuru becomes nansur. And then the duals and the plurals, they do the same thing as they did in light. So yansurani becomes yansura. Yansuruna becomes yansuru. Tansurina becomes tansuri. And we said that the feminine plurals, yansurna and tansurna, they never change. No, o oladoab. Hope I pronounced that right. Hum is rafa' when it's by itself, but if you see hum attached to something, then it's going to be nasab or jar. Hum and him, when they're attached to something, there's no difference in status. I can have hum attached hum be nasab or jar. I can have attached him also be nasab or jar. Is a word light or lightest only when we have light or lightest words. For light, all we've talked about is light or lightest words. But for lightest, we've also talked about commanding and forbidding. Commanding and forbidding are also in the lightest form. So remember that. Commanding and forbidding are also a reason for lightest. But don't worry too much about making commands and forbids yet. Just worry about recognizing lightest and light. For the plurals, I can't pronounce your name. Maghishan, Maghish N X. I'm just gonna pin you. There you go. For the plurals and the duals, you could say that, but not for the singular. صحفا مطهرة موصوف صفة. Yes, صحفا مطهرة is موصوف صفة. صحفا is a non-human plural, so it's going to be feminine singular. مطهرة is also feminine singular because it's describing صحفا. Page 45, number 5. I just did that one, Uzra. Simab, how do I tell the difference between light and lightest? Um, Context. Remember, Nahu is context, right? We need context for Nahu. Seek Allah, I don't understand your question. Why me made word light and lightest? What is me? Abdul Rahman, the workbook for Sarf is on the website. Check the website. Number 2 on page 48. Let's look at it. Number 2. Determine if it's present or if it's normal light or lightest. Okay. لينذر بأسا شديدا. Ba'san is an ism because it has tanween. We can tell that immediately. Shadidan is also an ism because it has tanween. You can disregard these. We're only looking at liyundhira. Liyundhira. So li can be a harf of light or it can be a harf of lightest. How do we know which one it is? Well, look at the ending. Um, Light has a different effect on a fi'l than lightest does, right? Which of the two, light or lightest, makes a fi'l end in a? If we're looking at yansuru as the example, yansuru, if we make it light, becomes yansura. If we make it lightest, becomes yansur. So does this look like yansura, or does the ending, I mean, does the ending here look like yansura, or does it look like yansur? It looks like yansura. So that's how we know this is li of light and not li of lightest. class will start whenever Ustad Norman gets here, inshallah. Is there a way to join today's live video from the beginning? Yeah, when the class starts, you can just join it. Umayma, can I take Islaman and put it into any form of the Muslim chart? No, you can't. Because the Muslim chart has some forms that are only for human words, remember? Muslimuna, Muslimina, Muslimina is only for humans. It's only for humans. Also, for words that are not human, I can't make them masculine and feminine. Islaman is masculine. I can't give it a feminine version. Okay? I can't give it a feminine version. For non-human words, whichever gender they have is the gender that they're going to be. I can't change their gender. But for human words, I can, because humans exist in both genders. But Islam does not exist in both genders. Can I speak Urdu? Yeah, I can. Number 2 on page 48, it's still on the screen. The li is a harf of light because we look at the ending, and the ending is a change that we saw when we looked at the lightest versions, not the light versions. If it was light, it would be liyunzir with sukun, but it's liyunzira with fatha, so that tells us it's lightest instead of light. Where am I from? I live in the United States. Are the review sessions on the website? They are on the website. So let me just show you guys because we combined them with the page to make it with the day to make it easier. If you go to previous session and let's say day 4, you click on day 4, you'll see the review session first, and then you'll see the actual lesson under that, and then any attachments for it under that. So we kind of put everything for a single day under that one day's heading to make it easy, make it easier. Can I say something in Urdu? Yeah, sure. Something in Urdu. Can I explain fragment 3 from yesterday's quiz? I explained it already, Sadia. Just rewind the video. 31 on page 48. Okay. '31. Bainahum is idafa, we can ignore it. Amrahum is idafa, we can ignore it. We're only looking at the first word, yatanaza'una. We know that ya plus una is a fi'l combination, right? It means home. So because we see the una at the end, we already know this is normal. We already know this is normal because of the una at the end. If this was light or lightest, it would be yatanaza'u. The noon would have been removed. The noon is still here, so we know this is normal. Yes, it's okay to attend offline if you need to do something else. I already explained fragment 3. I'm not going to speak Urdu because there's a lot of other people here.
All right, Jawad, let's wrap up the session and inshallah, let's start the class.
Okay.
So we'll end the broadcast now. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.